Welcome back to Milwaukee. Well, let me ask you this. Does this sound like you? You love food. Sometimes you can't even resist it. You simply must have the ice cream, the cupcake, or even that fast food sandwich.
Yes, and yes. So the truth is, I, or you, may be addicted to food. Registered dietitian Lisa Gredzolanik with YourTastyLife.com is here today to talk about food addiction and some ways that you can address it. And it's a real thing. You can actually be addicted to food?
I think we throw the term around a little flippant, like, oh, I'm a food addict.
Yeah.
But it really is getting more support, and the researchers are finding more and more about it. We continue to learn, but food addiction refers to the eating disorder where you have the inability to control or stop your eating despite negative consequences. So maybe it's weight gain, or maybe it's creating different social situations. You don't want to go to a party because you're worried about the food. So you really have the inability to stop or control your eating. And there's certain foods that we're finding out that are really linked to this. We call them highly palatable foods. So these are foods that have a lot of sugar, salt, and sodium. And what happens when we consume these foods, so let's think about pizza or ice cream or a donut, chips, junk food, right? These foods are highly palatable, and what they do then is they trigger our reward pleasure center in our brain. This is an area where it's our feel-good response. This is where we release dopamine. And what researchers have found, believe it or not, is we have certain individuals that are more inclined to be suffering from food addiction because maybe they have a different genetic pathway that links them up for this, but they have this highly palatable food. It triggers that reward pathway just like heroin or cocaine would trigger the brain. So the same reward pathway lights up, and so to get that hit, to get that next feel good, you need more of that same food. And so they have they can't control it. It's really something going on in the brain.
So it's not just the lack of discipline or willpower,
Right, and it really takes the onus off the person because they're like, well, why can't I stop? I mean, I can't fix this because there really is an addictive process going on.
Okay.
So it's more mental than anything.
It really is that dopamine response, that feel-good response that you're getting, and we simply don't get that response from celery, do we? You know, but
no.
a bag of chips does act different in our brain.
Bucket of popcorn. Well, so what can we do about it? Because this sounds kind of like more serious.
Yeah, one of the steps I really have folks do is look for someone who is experienced in food addiction. So a health psychologist, a psychiatrist, oftentimes you're working with a dietitian, but it's not as simple as just telling you what not to eat, right? You need to have that support system. There's many books out. I brought some examples. There's a book out that came out many years ago. It's The End to Overeating. It was actually a book put out by the FDA commissioner, basically kind of exposing the underbelly of how food can affect our brains. But there's lots of books related to mindful eating, workbooks, getting at your emotional status. So another tip would be really working on an emotional wellness plan or managing your stress, because a lot of times that's the trigger and you're going to food for a stressful reason, and now all of a sudden you get hooked in a way. And so managing your stress is important. Another thing would be looking for 8 hours of sleep a night. We've heard that for years. And what does sleep have to do with it?
Yeah, how does sleep help?
If you're sleep deprived, you make more of the hormone ghrelin, which is our hunger hormone. So it's just adding gasoline to the fire if you're sleep deprived. If you have more of this hormone already making you hungrier, you kind of go down that slippery slope. Same thing goes with avoiding sugar or being on a program where you're balancing your blood sugar. Sugar, we know, is a highly addictive substance. So if you have a very highly refined, sugar-filled food program, you're just going to be having a really hard time with that. And the biggest thing I would say tip-wise is avoid your trigger foods. So if I'm someone who's suffering from alcoholism, I don't want to hang out in a bar, I'm not going to drink. It's harder when you're talking about food because of course we all need to eat, but you need to know what your trigger foods are, and abstinence is the best policy.
So does it rewire that part of your brain that, I mean, if you get ahead of yourself, is there a cure? I guess I'm asking.
Well, I would say you have to stop stimulating that part, right? So if I know one cookie leads to a package, one scoop of ice cream leads to the whole bowl, abstinence is really avoiding it. So people will tell you it's always something, like someone who suffered with a drug addiction, they're in recovery their whole life, right? And so with food addiction, it is similar. We just look at it a little flippantly because it's food, but that abstinence part and that continual effort to have a support system in place is really, really important to be successful lifelong.
And I mean, I had to go through cleanses and stuff, and they're really, you actually gets worse before it gets better because you have to go through those first few days of the withdrawal and the crash, but after that, then it gets much easier.
It does,
right?
And it's just, again, you're kind of rewiring that brain chemistry. I mean, if you think about someone who smokes, right? They don't have that next nicotine hit. They're going to have that down before they feel good, and that's the same thing with food. So if you're starting a program and you have to remove a certain food, like it's pizza. You can't have pizza, and your initial reaction is, oh my God, how am I not going to have pizza?
Right.
It's kind of a clue. There might be a little more tighter relationship going on there that we'll look at.
Power through.
Yeah, but that's where the support comes in, right?
Yeah.
And having good resources, having a good health professional in your life that can really help you, friends, family that, you know, maybe have some discussions with, like, you know, please don't offer me certain foods because I'm really, truly trying not to eat those foods. It's affecting me differently than you.
So does this mean really that you wean yourself off and stay off? Because again, with chemical addiction, you
Generally, abstinence is really the best
Lisa!
policy. All my health psychologist friends will say it's really hard because, you know, it's a slippery slope. A little bit can lead to a lot. And you know, if you're trying not to drink, you're trying not to do drugs. I mean, if you put it so blatantly, and food addiction is very similar. It can put you back in there. And, you know, some folks through a lot of therapy are able to consume a very variety of foods again. They don't have to be as restrictive, but generally speaking, when you're starting out, you really can't have your trigger foods because it just sets you up.
Well, this was a sobering conversation. Thank you very much, Lisa.
Thank you.
You okay, Jim?
Yeah.
All right. We'll be right back.